Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. Let's go ahead and see what's going on here yesterday. As I warned, we have a lot of clues up top for the bears. So let's scroll back and take a look here. So remember, from the all-time high, I guess I'll pull up this 4-hour chart, right at our expected resistance level, we got a lot of clues on the higher time frames for the bears. That's why we were bears coming into the beginning of the week here on Monday, and then all of a sudden, and I did warn you guys that if we do pull back on Monday, we do have two roadmap levels here that make sense to hold the market up, and we do have that target to the downside if it keeps going to 50% of last week. Well, what was the low of yesterday? 50% of last week, the target we had the week before this, right? So it came down quite literally. I think it went through 2 ticks and bounced out yesterday. So everything was cluing in for the bears to pull things back, and that's exactly what we got yesterday. There was that little hiccup where, again, we bounced. I'll bring this back up one more time. We bounced right off our roadmap level here and came up going into the overnight session, or I don't even remember here, maybe at the end of the day on Monday there, came all the way back. But as we came into yesterday's market, I warned you, we have not come back to test that major bearish signal up top on pretty much every high time frame. And because of that, there were clues for a much deeper pullback. So that's kind of how we set the stage. We did talk about the fact that the bulls were defending on the pullbacks. So we had a very tricky market to read because the bulls were defending pullbacks, but everything was showing up for the bears off the highs. And so as we came into yesterday, quite literally right at the open, it started to become clearer who was in power, right? So we open here right at the holy orange power level, and the back end of the fast moving average is where the bulls had trouble, and that began a pretty awesome sell-off. So on the way down, I believe one of our members here, Kevin, got in and got a nice, really big short somewhere in here. I think he set off 50% of the previous day, maybe right here, and was able to get a really, really big trade to the downside. So on the way down, we had a lot of good opportunities. They were aggressive shorts off the back end of the fast moving average because it was an aggressive sell-off market, right? It never even had enough strength to get through the fast moving average for the first hour of the open here, right? Or at least for that first half hour. So on the way down, held the back end of the fast moving average the whole way down. There's the tag of the back end of 50% of last week and 1 or 2 ticks in front of the mid of the day before. Let's bring this out so we can see a little bit more. They tried to come all the way back up and tag what looked to be the back end of the roadmap level, and the 200, just shy of it, fell down, continued going. If you did try trying to counter trade this off of either this level here, I should probably more use this level right here, and then this level right here. Notice what happened on the bounce, right? It didn't break it by much, came up and fell right off the FMA in a very heavy market. So that should have been a clue that if you were long, probably wasn't going to work out for you. And then when it got down to that next roadmap level, it did find support again, but got 2 rejections and got a rejection off the fast moving average with a beautiful bearish divergence. So should have been a clue that you probably should be on the other side of what's going on, right? So kept going. Let's zoom this out. I think in this case we went right through the 200. There was a little bit of a hiccup there, right? It did pull back. You got a peak above and fell, bearish divergence, didn't quite go anywhere. And then you might have actually gotten a 5-point fade off of it. It did pull back. Now that I'm looking at it, you didn't take much risk off the 200, and you would have got yourself 6-7 points to the downside. So you could have got a 5-point scalp out of it, But then what did they do? They had to throw a wrench in the gears there and pop on through a little bit, only to continue going. So in this case, you actually did get a good 5-pointer out of it, but then it came right on back, peaked through, and then the rally continued to the downside. So there was that opportunity to try the back end of the 200 here, but it did kind of peak through a bit. Kept going. Again, you can see if you tried to counter trade it and go long right at the low of the day before and our scaffolding level, what happened? Rejected right off the fast moving average. So if you're watching this in real time, you know, might have been a clue that this was going to come and retest these lows, could go ahead and make a lower low, given the fact we were in such a heavy market. And then let's go ahead and pull this over. Then we get down through the major roadmap level and the low of the day before, and we tag it nearly to the tick for another pullback. And if you look on the way down here, it is that very typical stair step where if we wanted to argue, there's the back end of the day, high the day before, right in the overnight session. There's the hopeful. There's the back end, even though it's kind of a very shallow bounce to the 50% level. Here's a failure just in front. I mean, sometimes that's what happens. Then we get down to the next roadmap level, comes up, kisses it nearly to the tick for, again, like I said, if you got short off of that, you probably got at least a 6, 7, 8 point push. So great opportunity there. Of course, like I said, they threw that wrench in there, popped through, and then held the back end of the roadmap level, came down through the next one, and then hold the back end of that one, right? So there's a reason the market is doing this stuff, and it's not because I'm a magician and I just put these levels here and they just respect them. It's because these are major structure zones in the market, right? We know from the past price action that this is an area where price will chop around, get below it, and then hold below it and chop in the next block, right? So I know where all these blocks are, and that's why price seems to step up and down these areas. Now, is it perfectly clean every time? No, right? It's not perfectly clean every time. You can see a nice big push through in this case, a nice big push through in that case. But in the general sense, if you were just zoom out and look at this, they are quite literally stepping down these structure zones. That's why I have these called market scaffolding levels and major support and resistance, right? So still, in a very general sense, holds the back end of the next roadmap level here. Like I said, they peaked in a couple times. And then finally, after the messiness, they come right, and we see this happen all the time, they come right back to it. Oh, wrong button. Come right back to it there. And bam, kiss it to the tick. And then that begins the next sell-off, right? So it did get a bit messy here at one point, I think. If we come back, yeah, it got a little bit messy over here. But here is 50% of the previous week, not from this week's previous, but the week before. Again, if we go up to the higher time frames, when the market started to pull back from the all-time high, right off our expected resistance level, and started to pull back, I warned you that this right here at 57.33 half would be a very good target to the downside. Well, we never broke 58.30, and we came down, and yesterday quite literally bounced almost to the tick right off of it there for the low of the day. So if that's that level that you see right here on the charts. So we hold the back end of this roadmap level, come down, and we give a kiss to last week's roadmap level, our target, as we failed from the all-time high right to it. And then from there, we get the bounce back out. What do you know? On the way up, they pull back right off that structure zone there, right, with a bearish divergence, pulling back right to the fast moving average, your first target if you were to short that, which wasn't very much, just 3-4 points, but you did get a 5-pointer out of it if you held for 5 points. And then they got back through it and then held it basically to the tick for the push up to the next roadmap level where we got another pullback, right, with bearish divergence right off of our next major structure zone. which was also VWAP, which is a good additional icing on the cake there. And then we got the pullback for them to kind of bounce back and forth between each roadmap level, right? It did it a couple times, held the back end of the top roadmap level and held the bottom end of the other roadmap level there. And then, like I said, it got a little bit choppy, and that was just how the day started to unfold at the end there. Like I said, not as much rhyme or reason to the structure at that point. And then at the end of the day, we get this slight push higher. So let's zoom out and look at that really quick. So like I said, they hold back and forth between the roadmap level and then starts to get a bit messy, comes up, and what do you know? The end of the day here comes right to the next roadmap level and pulls back. And that's how the day ended, coming right back down to the next major. If you notice, this roadmap level around 55, major rotations happening off of it all throughout the day. Yeah, there were pushes through it, but very discrete rotations right off of it throughout the day there, right? Including that first tag as we were continuing to sell off earlier in the day there. Bam, right to it. So great opportunities yesterday. We came right to the exact level I warned you was going to be one of the better larger targets to the downside, and sure enough, that was the low of the day. And that brings us here into the overnight session coming into Wednesday morning, and it's just been a total chop fest. However, still basically holding right off the back end of that major roadmap level. So that's where we find ourselves coming into the open. Just got a nice little bounce right off the holy orange power level. Let's go ahead and jump up to the higher time frames